Hey guys, Dr. Kruse here. Got an algebra video about how to write the equation of a line like this, y equals mx plus b, if I give you a couple of points or if I just give you a point in the slope. All right, let's start with if I give you a couple of points on the line. For example, this point right here, the address is 4 to the right and 4 up, 4 to the right, 4 up. And this point right here is 6 to the right and 5 up. All right, how do I write the equation of the line that connects these 2 points? First thing we do is find the slope. And to find the slope, well, it's pretty obvious just looking at this one that it goes up 1 over 2. So our slope's going to end up being 1/2. But without a graph, without a picture, how do we find the slope? We do the change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to start with the 5. This is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. And I'm going to go y minus y over x minus x. So 5 minus 4 over 6 minus 4. 5 minus 4 over 6 minus 4 works out to 1 over 2, or you can use 0.5 if you like. After you find the slope, the second thing you have to find is the y-intercept. Now look at it visually here. If we go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, we're kind of going away from the y-axis. So let's throw it in reverse. Instead of going up 1 over 2, let's go down 1, left 2, down 1, left 2. There's our y-intercept right there, 2. Now remember, we have to figure out how to do this without a graph. So without a graph, we just go y equals mx plus b, and I'm looking for the b. That means I need numbers for the x and y and m. Now we just figured out the m. The m is 1/2. What do I do for x and y? I can use any of these points on the line. I can use 4 for x and 4 for y, or 6 for x and 5 for y. That's what I did down here. I changed y to 5 and x to 6. Do this multiplication right here. Half of 6 is 3. And my new equation is 5 equals 3 plus b minus 3 minus 3. Gives me a b of 2. So here's how to do it visually, and here's how to do it mathematically. And we end up with y equals mx plus b. You just put the 1/2 in for the m and the 2 for b. Let's do this one over here. Given the point 3, 1, 3 to the right and 1 up, and the point 4, 2, 4 to the right and 2 up. How do I write the equation of that line right there? Well, I need the slope, up 1 over 1. My slope's going to be 1. And I need the y-intercept. Now I can go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, but that's moving away from the y-axis. So let's throw it in reverse here and go down 1, left 1, down 1, left 1, down 1, left 1. It's going to be a y-intercept of -2. So my equation is going to be y equals 1x minus 2. Now remember the point. The point is to do this without the graph. So without the graph, my slope, if I'm given 2 points, I can do 1 minus 2 over 3 minus 4, or I can start with the 2, which is what I did, and go 2 minus 1 over 4 minus 3. It's the difference in the y's over the difference in the x's. Difference means subtract. The difference in the y's over the difference in the x's, delta y over delta x. So 2 minus 1 over 4 minus 3 gives me a slope of 1. How do I find b? I just plug in numbers for y and m and x. M, we just figured out that's 1. So change the m to 1. X and y, I can use 3 for x and 1 for y, or 4 for x and 2 for y. I chose to use 3 for x and 1 for y. So replace the y with 1, replace the x with 3, multiply to get 3. Minus 3 gives me -2 equals b. And now that you have the slope and the y-intercept, just plug them in right here. Y equals mx plus b. Now the m is 1, and we just don't write the 1 because 1 times x is just x. And when I say plus b, well, it's going to be minus b if b happens to be negative. Now, if your slope goes downhill, you got to be a little careful on the math. So let's say you're given this point right here. That's 3 to the right and 2 down. 3, -2. Or this point right here, that's 6 to the right and 3 down. That's 6, -3. Or this point right here, that's 9 to the right and 4 down, 9, negative 4. Let's use these two right here, 6, negative 3, and 9, negative 4. So without the graph, let's calculate slope, okay? I choose to start with the y of negative 3. So I'm going to go negative 3 minus negative 4, negative 3 minus negative 4. It's the difference of the y's. There's a whole bunch of negative and minuses going on there. It's the difference of negative 3 and negative 4. So negative 3 minus negative 4 over 6 minus 9. Just be careful on your calculator. This is going to work out to be 1 over negative 3. Now we don't like to write 1 over negative 3. We'd rather write negative 1 over 3. It works out the same way. It's still a negative 1/3. We just don't like the negative down there with the 3 because it's bad grammar. So our slope works out to be negative 1/3. By the way, that's negative 0.33333. We don't want to use the decimal if it's a repeating decimal, all right? Because if we use the decimal, we have to round it. And if we round it, that introduces some mistake into our problem. So if you have a decimal, it's okay if it's a nice decimal, like these guys up here, 1/2, that's the decimal 0.5. That's fine, all right, because it's 0.5 stop. But if you have a nasty decimal like 1/3, that's 0.333 repeating on forever, don't use the ones that repeat forever. Use the fraction instead. It's better. All right, what's b? Well, I need to replace y and m and x with numbers. M is the fraction negative 1/3, and I chose to use 9 for x and negative 4 for y. So 9 goes in for x, negative 4 goes in for y. Multiply, negative 1/3 times 9 is negative 3. And let's get that away from the b. Let's plus 3, negative 1 is b. So y equals negative 1/3 x minus 1. And here's another one worked out for you over here if you need more practice. All right, so here's more like what a homework problem would look like. They'd say f of 2 equals 4. All right, remember this is the input, this is the output, this is the x, this is the y. So what they're doing here is they're actually giving you the ordered pair 2, 4. They're saying the number of things that I had after 2 years was 4. Maybe I had 4 cows after 2 years or whatever. And f of 6 is 24, so maybe after 6 years I had 24 cows. That's the ordered pair 6, 24. So given this ordered pair and given this ordered pair, that's given 2 points on a graph. Let's figure out what the equation is and what the slope is and all of that. All right, first things first, let's find the equation. So I need to know what m is. 4 minus 24 over 2 minus 6 is how I did it. I wound up with a slope of 5. And next, I got to find b. I got to find the y-intercept. So to find b, I need numbers for y and m and x. And we just figured out that m was 5, so m is replaced by 5. And for x and y, I can use 2 for x and 4 for y, or 6 for x and 24 for y. These are the ones I used. So y is replaced by 24, x is replaced by 6. Multiply gives you 30. Let's get that 30 away from the b. Let's minus 30, and we get b equals negative 6. So our equation is y equals mx plus b. Replace the m with 5, replace the b with negative 6, and there's your equation. All right, note that our slope is 5. That means it's going to go 5 steps up for every 1 step it goes over. All right, here's another one to try. All right, if f of 2 equals 9 and f of 8 equals 3.6, what's the equation, what's the slope? We have a bunch of questions we can answer. Let's get the equation first. Y minus y over x minus x. The difference in the y's over the difference in the x's is negative 0.9. So this slope is negative. This is a downhill slope. It's going to go 9 steps down for every 10 steps it goes over. 0.9 is 9 over 10. Find the equation. Okay, I've got m. It's negative 0.9. I need to either use this x and y or this x and y. I chose to use these guys over here. Replace y with 3.6. Replace x with 8. Multiply, that's negative 7.2. Let's get that away from the b by adding 7.2 to both sides. So b is 10.8. replace m with negative 0.9, replace b with plus 10.8, and there's your equation. All right, what if they just give us a point and the slope? So instead of giving us two ordered pairs, they gave us an ordered pair 2, 6, and they told us the slope is 2.7. And now they ask us this question over here, which we'll get to in a minute. All right, let's come up with an equation, and we'll come back and answer that question. So find the equation. The first thing we do is find m, all right? M is the slope. Well, this time the slope is given to us. So we can move on to finding b. Y equals mx plus b. We need to put in numbers for y and m and x. They told us that m is 2.7. For x and y, we have to use any available points, and they only give us this point right here, so that's the one we got to use. Use 2 for x and 6 for y. So replace y with 6, replace x with 2. Multiply, that's 5.4. Let's get that away from the b. Let's minus 5.4 minus 5.4. b turns out to be 0.6. So to write my equation, I replace the m with 2.7, and I replace the b with 0.6. Okay, what do I do now? Well, remember that I can say y, or I can say f of x. So f of x equals 2.7x plus 0.6. They asked me about 4. They said, if you change x to 4 and plug it in, what do you get? So they're kind of asking this. They told us that after 2 years, we have 6 cows. What about after 4 years? How many cows do we have then? They're saying, what is f of 4? How many do you have after 4 units of time? So if x is 4, what is y? That's the question. So they're telling us x and they're asking for y. So let's change x to 4. Change x to 4. Let's do the math. And turns out y is 11.4. So after 4 years, I would have 11.4 cows. All right, here's another one for you to try. If you want to practice one on your own, just pause the video and work it out. See if you get the right answer. But given the point 2, 8 and the slope of negative 3.6, when is f of x 0? Now this time, they're not telling you what the x is, but they are telling you what the y is. So they're saying, when is y 0? So this is the question you need to answer. But first, you need to use this information to get a formula. So pause the video and take a shot at that one. All right, and here's our solution. So first of all, I need slope. I need to calculate slope. Well, I don't need to calculate it because they gave it to us. So second of all, I need b. I need the y-intercept. So let's plug in numbers for x and y. And we already know the slope is negative 3.6 because they told us that. Let's plug in 8 for y. Let's plug in 2 for x. Multiply, that's negative 7.2. Let's get that away from the b. Let's add 7.2 to both sides. b is 15.2. So my equation is replace m with negative 3.6. Replace b with 15.2. Here's my equation. Now I can answer my question here. They're telling us what y is. See, they said after 2 years, you had 8 cows. How many years later would you have 0 cows? So given the y, figure out what the x is. So they told us what the y is. The y is 0, and I need to solve for x. First thing is to move the 15.2 over here. So minus 15.2 minus 15.2 gives us this equation. Negative 15.2 equals negative 3.6x. And the last thing we do is divide this negative 3.6x away from the x. So divided by negative 3.6 divided by negative 3.6 gives us an x of 4.22. So if I had 8 cows after 2 years, then I would have 0 cows after 4.22 years because I have fewer cows every year. I'm losing cows every year. All right, here's a word problem where we have to use a little logic to create the information that we need. They said fingernails grow at 3 millimeters per month. And they said if a fingernail was initially measured at 13 millimeters long, so that was our starting measurement, find a formula that gives length in terms of t months. All right, well, let's think about that. Let's just make a little simple XY table. And remember, the length of the nail depends on how much time has gone by. the length of the nail depends on how many months have gone by. So the length of the nail depends on how many months have gone by. Here's months, here's length of nail. Now they told us initially, that's our initial value. When no time had gone by, the fingernail was initially 13 millimeters long. And the next piece of information is actually the rate of growth, or the slope. They're telling us that it grows at 3 millimeters per month. Now, if we can spot that this is the slope, that's great. But if not, let's just continue our table. If it's growing 3 millimeters each month, that means the next month it'll be 16 millimeters. And the next month it'll be 19 millimeters long. It's going to grow 3 millimeters every time a month goes by. So I can create this table here, and once you create a table, now you know how to write the equation. First you calculate the slope, and then you calculate the y-intercept. All right, let's calculate the slope. I'm going to use 1/16 and 0/13 to calculate slope. So I'm going to go 16 minus 13 over 1 minus 0. 16 minus 13 over 1 minus 0 gives me a slope of 3. Now, if I'm on the ball, I noticed that they gave me that in the problem. I maybe just didn't recognize it. But anytime they give you a growth rate or a growth speed, that is your slope, your rate of change. Now let's go find the y-intercept. All right, I need a y, an m, and an x. I already know that m is 3. I can borrow any x and y in the table. I can borrow this x and this y, or that x and that y, or that x and that y. I'm going to choose 1 and 16. So replace y with 16, replace x with 1, multiply. Now move the 3 away from the b, minus 3 minus 3, b is 13. Now if I'm on the ball, I would have seen that right here. Your initial value is your y-intercept. That is your b, the amount you started with. So we end up with y equals 3x plus 13, 3x plus 13. Using the letters that they use in the problem, the length of the fingernail in terms of how many months have gone by is 3 inches each month plus the initial starting value of 13 millimeters, not inches, millimeters. All right, the last one's just kind of an interesting problem. The temperature T is a function of cricket chirps C. And what they're saying is if you go outside and set your stopwatch and you listen for a minute and you count the number of cricket chirps that you hear, you can calculate the temperature. Because the warmer it is, the more a cricket chirps in a minute. They said 2 cricket chirps counts as 42 degrees Fahrenheit, and then every additional chirp per minute is an increase of 1/4 degree. So you got to think a little bit, but you can put a table together, x and y. All right, the temperature depends on how many chirps you heard. So the temperature is in terms of chirps. The temperature depends on how many chirps you heard. They said, okay, 2 chirps. If you hear 2 chirps in a minute, that's 42 degrees Fahrenheit. And for every additional chirp you hear, so if you hear 3 chirps instead of 2, then your temperature goes up 1/4 degree. So now it's 42 1/4 degrees. And we could go one more time. If we hear 4 chirps in a minute, it goes up another 1/4 degree to 42 1/2 degrees. Let's write an equation. What's the slope? All right, slope I chose to do 42.25 minus 42 over 3 minus 2 for a slope of 0.25. Again, they gave that to us right here. They gave us the slope. You just have to kind of get used to seeing it and recognizing it. What's the rate of growth? The temperature grows at a rate of 1/4 degree per chirp. So sometimes you can spot that, but if you have to calculate it, it's not that big a deal. What's b? Replace y and x. We already know that m is 0.25 from over here. And then pick an x and y out of the table. I chose 2 and 42. So replace y with 42, replace x with 2. Multiply, that's 0.5. And subtract 0.5 from both sides, you get b equals 41.5. So y equals 0.25x plus 41.5. Using their letters, the temperature in terms of how many chirps you heard is 0.25t plus 41.5.